We have social scripts and visuals for our classroom expectations and playground expectations across the whole school. So every day at St. Pat's, everyone in the classroom is read the script around the rules for the classroom and for the playground. And they're 3 very simple rules for each, but that sort of sets the tone for everyone in terms of this is who we are at St. Patrick's School and this is how we do it. And the more you speak it, the more you become it. So we felt like those overarching processes, creating that common language around behaviour expectations, is crucial before we can actually even really tackle the challenging behaviours.
100%, 100%. And for children who are neurodiverse, that inconsistency between classroom teachers' expectations is incredibly confusing. Why one teacher allows something and another doesn't. And I mean, I've said for many years, what does we care, we share mean? Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sue Larkey podcast. As I always say, you have to embrace difference to make a difference. Let's dive into today's podcast. Well, welcome everybody. I am so excited. We have Renee back, who was on the podcast, who was with us back in episode 192, where she shared the amazing tips she was using with her son around video modelling. But Renee also has another hat she wears, which is a principal, and they have the most exciting new initiative, which she has kindly offered to come and share, and also a PDF you can download. And I would love everyone to think about putting this in place this year and actually reading what they're doing. I think you can use this from early year right through to secondary and even post-school options, I think. So whatever age group you're with, I would love you to, like I always say, treat it like trying on coats, but I think everybody can take something away from this. So welcome, Renee.
Oh, thank you, Sue. I'm so excited to be back.
Yeah, so share with us about this new initiative. I'm so excited.
Okay, so I'm the principal at St. Patrick's School, Lithgow, and over the last couple of years, we've developed an initiative and we've called it the Hub. So just like at schools, we look at students with difficulties with reading and maths, and we assess and find out where the skills are lacking, and we intervene in that way to build the skills. We take that exact same approach with behaviour. We take that skill building approach, and that's what the Hub is all about. And the exciting part of the program that we've implemented is that this year we've become a little bit of a professional learning hub. We've had I cannot even tell you how many people we've had from other schools come to visit St. Patrick's School and engage in a workshop about the Hub. But it's not just about the program that we're implementing. It's about the whole school approaches that we've put into place at St. Patrick's School that ensure that the Hub runs successfully. So I've presented to over 100 people this year within our diocese and outside of the diocese, and we're just so excited because we know that currently challenging behaviours is one of the biggest difficulties that our classroom teachers are facing, and often that's cited as the reason for teachers leaving the profession. And they've been leaving in droves, so we don't want anyone else to leave the profession. So this program is not just about supporting our students with the highest needs. It's about supporting all students with engagement, but also supporting our teachers in the classroom. Because what we're finding is that, and I like to call it a sink or swim situation. I think a lot of students and teachers are in sink or swim situations. They're going in every day, trying their best, but because there's a lot of I call it silo work. So lots of great things happening in schools, but it's happening in silos. So people are often on their own, trying new things every day, trying different strategies with challenging behaviours, and it becomes overwhelming and exhausting. And I think leadership teams and support teachers, they're on that constant sort of call out mode, getting called out to classrooms. Oh, this one's having trouble here, they need a break. And it's always in that very reactive mode. And that's kind of what our school was like a few years ago before we put this program into place. And we've switched from that reactive mode to a very proactive mode. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, as well as the parent resource that we've developed as well, if we get time.
No, yeah. Well, I think that's the most important part, to tell you the truth. What I loved reading the PDF that I encourage people to download is that you're bringing your whole community on this journey. You're bringing the parents, and a lot of the parents' worries about, oh, is my child going to miss out on class or what's, and what you said in that intro about, it's just like reading recovery. It's no different. And I've always said that with emotional literacy, I like to call it emotional literacy, because a child can't manage their behavior unless they can name the emotion. So when I read through your stuff, I was like, oh my goodness, this is all my, all the stuff I love and adore, and all that proactive putting in place the strategies. But also what I love about the hub, it's not a one size fits all. It sounds like you're really different children are accessing different things depending on their needs. And I really like that flexibility and understanding that some children might need a check-in in the morning, some might need a check-in after lunch. Am I right in thinking that?
It's all very, very individualized, and the overarching thing that makes the hub successful is at first the leadership approach within your school to create this safe, settled environment overall, and have very clear structures in place across the whole school. And that's exactly the starting point that we were at in terms of, well, what is quality student engagement and what do we need to ensure is happening in our school to ensure that all kids are engaged and feeling safe to bring everyone's anxiety down, because we know that anxiety up, problem solving and executive functioning is down. So we've actually taken that approach whole school to create very solid structures around this safe, settled environment as the priority for everyone. So we have, I know you love social scripts and visuals. We actually have social scripts and visuals for our classroom expectations and playground expectations across the whole school. So every day at St. Pat's, everyone in the classroom is read the script around the rules for the classroom and for the playground. And there are 3 very simple rules for each, but that sort of sets the tone for everyone in terms of, this is who we are at St. Patrick's School and this is how we do it. And the more you speak it, the more you become it. So we felt like those overarching processes, creating that common language around behaviour expectations, is crucial before we can actually even really tackle the challenging behaviours.
100%. And for children who are neurodiverse, that inconsistency between classroom teachers' expectations is incredibly confusing. Why one teacher allows something and another doesn't. And I mean, I've said for many years, what does we care, we share mean? Many of my children have no concept of what that means. I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, but can you share what those 3 expectations are?
Yeah, so for the classroom, so the first one is around whole body listening. So the importance of whole body listening and why we do that at St. Patrick's School and what that looks like. The next one is that skill of putting our hand up in the classroom is a really important one. I mean, sometimes there are situations where we don't put our hand up, but I think really being explicit about that is important. And then the last one is just around respect. So we treat each other with kindness and respect. So very, very simple, but they are the 3 things that we've found very effective. And for the playground, it's about listening to the teachers and following instructions, again, being respectful and being responsible. So I can share those with you, Sue, to upload as well. But they're just very simple scripts that happen daily in the classroom. And what that does, it builds the common language around the school. It builds that common understanding, because we always say to our teachers, it's not just about, okay, so Sue's having trouble in the classroom, so we're going to take her over to the hub, sort her out, and then we'll put her back in. If we take Sue over to the hub and explore more deeply with her what whole body listening looks like, why we need to put up our hand, and then we put you back in the classroom and she sees half the class calling out, all of a sudden your anxiety is probably going up. You'll probably be a little bit peed off that, why should I do that and everybody else isn't? So we talk about accountability a lot with our teachers and the importance of that. And it really is a game changer when we make everybody accountable. I know sometimes as classroom teachers, you sort of do it without even thinking, oh, I'll let that one slide, or, oh, that child's not too much trouble, so if they're calling out, it's not that such a big deal. Really, we talk about we need to eliminate the grey areas if all of our children are going to succeed and not be confused.
100%. And this is where often my students become the police officer, because someone has enforced a law on them so hard, or a rule, and then they see inconsistency and they point that out thinking they're being helpful. And teachers get frustrated that this kid's like, that kid's calling out, but actually they're just pointing out what someone sort of expected of them. And then that causes anxiety and confusion. So I love that. And I don't know if you remember, but in my course, my number 9 tip is always consistency and persistence, and how important that is across all staff. And that's what and home and school. And I love that the hub is creating that. And it's not just a take the child out. You're taking them out and building the skills, but ensuring that when they come back to the classroom, in some ways, people are respectful of that child's learning and what they're going through, and helping them understand and build those skills. I love it. I love it.
Right. And everything we do within the hub is underneath this overarching umbrella that covers the whole school in terms of that safe, settled environment, very clear expectations. And what actually happens in the hub is we unpack that further for the children who really need more explanation and more understanding and more practice of these skills before applying them in the classroom. But there's no point doing that if we don't have the model exemplars in the classroom.
100%. Now, so tell me, I mean, people are probably going, what does this hub look like? So if I was to walk in there now, what would I see? What would I see?
So you would see a space that's set up a little bit like a classroom. All of the students who start the day in there have their own little desk. They have one of your timers, so they have each, and they have some therapy. So when I'm talking to people about the hub, I like to talk to them in terms of the 4 things that sort of are happening down there. So it is a physical space. There are staff members working in there throughout the day. And when we first started the hub, I think we had maybe 3 students starting the day in the hub, and that's grown to about 15 because we've been able to get some additional funding for this, which has allowed us just to offer it to more students. So we find that the first thing that we do in the hub is provide, we call them anchor points. So that's the first big idea, the anchor points. So our highest needs children and our children who struggle with engagement the most, often they come to the hub and they start their day in the hub. So that anchor point is just brilliant in terms of the coming into school. I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm doing. So the data that we've got around any children who are experiencing school refusal is incredible, because they're not just heading out to the playground of a morning, which can be no man's land. You know, who am I going to play with? What am I going to do? My friends won't be here. It's just that solid focus. So they come to the hub in the morning. They all know how to use the timer. So they set their timer for 5 minutes, and it runs just like a well-oiled machine now. They have 5 minutes therapy time, and then they go to what we call their roadmap. So we've got the anchor point, the children with the anchor points, and then we've got the roadmaps. So the roadmaps are a social script about the bones of the day. So at the workshops, sometimes the teachers say, oh, I don't have time to write social scripts all the time. We don't actually write a social script. You know, the social script's written at the start of the year, and it's the bones of what the day will look like, and that really doesn't change. And so they read through that, and then if there are any changes to the day, that's when that's explored. Oh, okay, so your teacher's away, or your TA might be away. We might be having an assembly today, and that's sort of unpacked there. And then the team in the hub are able to gauge whether that child is settled enough to go and start the day in the classroom, and 9 times out of 10 they are. Because
I think what you're saying here is so important. For children whose anxiety is up in the morning, school refusal, that routine is invaluable. And knowing because one day children line up, one day they're in here, one day they're there. You've taken all the social anxiety out. So listening in, you've put in place key strap that every child knows they're going to come in for 5 minutes with their therapy? And then how long does a roadmap normally take? Just so people have an idea.
Probably 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So all of these kids now, once that routine's established, and it's established very, very quickly, it's just in and out, but, max 10 minutes, barring any sort of dysregulation or any problems that might come up during the morning, which generally they don't, because the routines are so ingrained. And then off they go to class. So
sorry to talk over you, but just for teachers listening, I just want to be clear, 10 minutes to set this child up for the whole day, but not only for the families, because so often that separation anxiety, it's because the parents don't know what the child's doing. So I found that co-regulation. So what you're putting in place is amazing co-regulation, because the parents know exactly where the child's going, what they're doing. So in my experience, and this is where I'm saying, like, even in the early years, this would be invaluable, that a child comes in, everyone else might be out playing in the preschool, they have that time, or in secondary. And I know there's a school in Tamworth that in the high school, the kids come in and make a toasted sandwich, because a lot of their kids haven't had breakfast. So it's, knowing they're going to get that toasted sandwich in the morning is similar to the therapy, because some of our kids mightn't have eaten since yesterday. So, I'd love people to think, what do their kids need to regulate? I mean, I personally think every age and stage, whether it's the workforce, some of my kids, young adults, 5 minutes on the therapy. But I just wanted to sort of get people to think about, it's only 10 minutes. 10 minutes out of a whole day. Yeah.
It's only 10 minutes. And once the routines are established, the children can actually run the routines themselves. And the beauty of it is, a few years ago with our highest needs kids, their TA might have been away, and then the wheels fall off for the whole day. So it's a horrendous day. That actually doesn't happen anymore, because the child isn't reliant on the people. The child knows the routine, and that's the support. So it doesn't matter if there's a casual teacher in anymore, or if the TA is away, because the skeleton of the day is always there. We find that the wheels don't actually fall off, which is amazing, and it just sets our students up for that really calm, confident, independent transition to the classroom. So all of our highest needs kids who have these anchor points and roadmaps in the morning, they might have been working on, I know when Hunter first came to St. Pat's, one of the first skills he learned was walking the safe way to the classroom. And he practiced that skill for a couple of times, and then it was quite quickly embedded. But with the support, he can do things very, very independently. So the third thing, the third sort of aspect of the hub, we call them springboards. So what does a springboard do? It helps you, it bends and you can jump higher and projects you into something. So we focus on that skill building in the hub then. So all of the students who are engaged in the hub, we're working all of the time with the teaching staff, with the family and relevant professionals to identify, well, what skills are lacking here? So if, say, we have a student who's running off every time they go outside, what skill do we need to build there? We need to build the skill around, well, I need to stop when the teacher asks me to stop, and why do I need to stop, and why is that important? So that's a skill in itself. So the springboards are the sessions that we have in the hub that are timetabled. So all of our targeted students would have a timetabled time to come to the hub throughout the day, and it might be a 10, 15-minute session where they're working on a target skill. So it might be unpacking whole body listening more. It might be, how do we cope with losing a game? So that's very individualized, or it might be emotional regulation. And that then springboards to be able to do that in the classroom, if that makes sense.
I love it. It's so important. So I'm hearing that you've got in place routines, and then that spring building or building skills depending on the individual child. But I get the impression they're doing that daily. It's not just a once off. Is that right?
It's not a once off. It's not a once off. So within our hub timetable, we have those students who start their day in the hub, and then we have a couple of sessions throughout the day where groups might be coming back for their skill building. And we also have scheduled regulation breaks. So there's no more of that phone the office, Sue needs a break. Can you come and get her? We don't actually have that anymore at all. We don't have call outs to the classroom. I mean, there's always a one-off, probably around the full moon. Something might go awry, but generally we find that we don't need to be in that reactive mode anymore, because the students have their planned regulation break. They're set up for success in the classroom. They get that need met when they go for their regulation break, and that means they're actually engaging in a really meaningful way in the classroom. They're not just cope until I eventually lose it or lose it at home.
100%. And I think what as you said up front, you're putting in the proactive, not the reactive strategies. Mm-hmm. And going back to what you said about teachers, it means that no teacher wants to call the office. That's my experience. No one wants to call the office. So the truth is that teachers then feel more settled, calmer, not thinking, should I call? Where are we up to with this meltdown? Is this child just masking? Because they know that child's cup's been emptied out along the way. And you're giving the child the skills as well as the release and the emotional regulation they need. And really, I know this, I hate this word, but you're really respecting this child's different way of engaging and learning and what they need. As you say, no different to a child whose English is second language who might be taken out, or a child who needs reading recovery. It's just building those skills and giving them what they need daily, and therefore making it a calmer environment for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we've really tried to do here at St. Pat's, and that's what we try to do with the workshops. Try to change that thinking around, well, this child's here to learn. They have to be in the classroom, learn. Of course, we want them to learn, but for some kids to learn, they need other needs met first. And that's what the hub is about. But it's also about supporting teachers. I mean, as a classroom teacher, we might have 4 or 5 kids in our class who might need a social story for 4 or 5 different things, or skill building around this, or a visual timetable for this. As a classroom teacher, you are never going to be able to do that as well as teach. And we want our kids at St. Pat's to be able to walk in and learn. We want our teachers to be able to walk in and teach, not teach in their spare time when they get 5 minutes away from managing all of the challenges that are coming their way. Teachers cannot do that. And I think that's why so many of them are struggling.
And not only that, as you said, a lot are leaving, but they didn't learn it at uni. I mean, special education is still a selective subject. And, I have teachers who have been teaching for 30 years come to my workshops and go, hey, why didn't someone tell me this 30 years ago? And it honestly breaks my heart, because none of it's hard. Nothing you have said today is actually hard. But, my doctorate research would say teachers that say they don't have the time, resources, or support to put the strategies in place. What I'm hearing is you're creating the time, you're creating the resources, and making them feel supported. So you're like, if I look at my doctorate research, you're ticking off all the challenges teachers say, like, I agree with inclusion, but I'm struggling to make it work. The hub sounds like the perfect solution to that time, resources, support.
It really is, and it's very, very simple. And I think that's why lots of initiatives in schools don't get off the ground, because if it's not simple, and if it's too complex and too time consuming, it just won't happen. So with all of our students who engage in the hub, we work as a team to create a personal plan, to create this individual schedule, individual skill building within the hub, so that the teacher doesn't have to reinvent the wheel every year. So Hunter's little package of his hub routine, and of course we're adjusting on the way and evaluating and making changes as we go, but his little personal plan and his package just goes with him next year. So it's not as if, okay, he's going into year 2 next year, let's meet with the teacher and sort out what we're going to do. We already know what year 2 will look like for Hunter. His hub routine will just carry over. And there's so much, that brings the anxiety down for the teachers too, because they can just think about teaching. They can think about curriculum. They don't have to think about reinventing a whole new individual plan for Hunter when he arrives, because it's already embedded.
I love it. Now, we better is there a 4th step?
So the 4th one I've sort of already touched on, but we call it the check engine. So obviously the check engine light tells us when something's wrong. That's the students who just might have a pop-in down at the hub or have a scheduled regulation break or just a quick check, we call it. So as our kids get older and they don't become as reliant on the hub, but they know that option is there. So we use the red beast quite a lot. And we've actually adapted it to our kids call it, we've got a red beast and a worry beast and a silly beast.
Because I'll make sure I tell Kay that. She will love hearing.
It's important for our senior kids too to know that the red zone can be anger, but it can also be disruptive behaviour in the classroom or silly behaviour, getting them to see that dysregulation isn't just anger. You know, when you're trying to disrupt the class and you're playing up on the teacher, that's dysregulation. You need to treat it the same.
Yeah, I love it.
That's a game changer for our senior boys as well, and actually getting them to say, so I'm dysregulated, and that's why I'm, giving the teacher a hard time, and really understanding that is very important. So lots of our kids get to the point where they might just be doing an optional check engine. Some kids need the hub routine forever. It's very much embedded and supporting them. But some kids tend to wean themselves off too, which is lovely because that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? Independence. So they're the four things, the anchor point.
I love it. But what I'm hearing, and not only, of course, we're building towards independence and regulation, but what I love, it's a safety net. So if it's like they can come back to it, just like when I've done say a school does reading recovery or something. Sometimes you do check-ins as the child grows, or what, I love that it's there and the teachers know you've got that as a support. It's not like, we're doing the hub for a term and then it's gone. It's an ongoing support and I can absolutely see why everybody loves it. And I highly recommend people read the testimonials at the back of the PDF because I love the staff and student testimonials about what they love about it. And that was for me, I think that's the ultimate when everybody can see the difference it makes to the child. And dare I say, what I hear is people are seeing what's possible. And I think sometimes when we're caught up with behaviour, or we just can't help but see the behaviour. Whereas both the child and the staff are now like, wow, look when Hunter's regulated, how amazing he can be.
And we've really moved away from that, such and such has done this, so this will be the consequence. That sort of rewards punishment model, we don't even enter into any discussion really about that because we don't need to anymore because we're so in tune with the kids and their behaviour and meeting their needs and building those skills. We are finding that they're not struggling with those challenging behaviours at all. I mean, as I said, we are a school and we still have our little moments, but all of our kids have very clear action plans that the staff follow if things do go awry, and that works really well. And within those action plans, we also build in common language for the teachers to use. So we actually sort of script for the teachers, this is what to say in this point. So that really supports the teacher in that consistent response to inappropriate behaviour, which creates safety for the child in itself, doesn't it? We even build common language around what to say if there is an inappropriate behaviour so that it's consistent every time. And that brings that behaviour down very, very quickly as well.
Of course, because as you said at the beginning, anxiety up, problem solving down. So if people use different language, the child's got to try and understand what you mean by your language. Whereas if everyone says the same thing, the child then has a common language, and in that in itself is calming. Just hearing, it's a bit like I say, people like to go and watch their same show, listen to the same music. We all have our favourites, which help regulate us. And sometimes staff using the same language helps children regulate. So I absolutely love it. I'm so, so excited. And I'm excited that people are going to want to put in their hubs, and you're going to be inundated with people visiting you next year.
So I think within the book, the PDF that you are going to upload for the community, there are contact details there. If anybody is interested in the professional learning sessions, we'll be running lots of those next year again, hopefully. And within those professional learning sessions, we obviously unpack sort of that leadership component and those whole school processes that really support the hub and it's running effectively. We talk about the hub and what it is and what happens in there and share lots of resources in terms of that. And people are more than welcome to contact the school to find out more.
All those links in my podcast in the show note, like the blog and podcast notes. And if you get too overwhelmed with emails, let me know. But I just want to congratulate. I'm a little bit teary about how amazing you guys are and all you're doing for the kids. I'm just so inspirational. And I just love the fact you're prepared to come on and share and be abundant in sharing so much with my community, because I just think this is exactly what we've been looking for a long time. I think so too. And, I think every single child deserves a fair go. And this is not only a fair go for all of our kids, but it gives our kids a chance to be understood and for their needs to be really celebrated. And it actually also shows our whole school community that, even though a child struggles to engage in the classroom, it doesn't mean we shouldn't treat it like we would if they were struggling with their reading. I agree.
Maths.
Yeah.
We build skills over here for academics, and we can also do that with social emotional. And in fact, that is more important than anything, because when sometimes teachers might talk about, they need to be in the classroom. They can't go out of the classroom. They have to be in the classroom learning. And I think to myself, when you look at the mental health statistics, particularly for young people with autism, they're growing up with lots of PTSD symptoms, lots of mental health issues. And I believe that's because they're being thrown into these sink or swim situations for the whole of their schooling. And it's actually very detrimental to their mental health. So if you have a child with, who grows up with mental health, are they going to think back to that, year one writing lesson to help save their life? No, they won't. They'll think back to these kinds of strategies and this kind of emotional regulation. This type of stuff could save lives.
Absolutely. And look, I think a lot of people have heard me go on this year about 2/3 of children's learning improves with social emotional learning. NAPLAN measures all the wrong things. Social emotional learning is the key. If social emotional learning isn't in place, children can't learn. Think of yourself. If you're anxious, overwhelmed, how good's your memory or learning? So, how often have you been emotional and then you don't even hear what people are saying? So unless we get that social emotional piece in place. But what I love what you're offering is a very simple way to do that. It's not an overwhelming thing it can be integrated in every school. It's not an expensive thing. It's not getting in a specialist counselor or a psychologist. It's actually embedded in the school in a way that feels very, very easy to me.
It is. And the beauty of this is that it's been designed and delivered at the school level. So by people who are in the classroom, who haven't forgotten what it's like to be a classroom teacher, who haven't gone off and done, 5 years of research and brought this great idea in, that will only work in that utopian classroom in the sky. It's really, really important to know that if things aren't simple and relevant to what it's like to be a classroom teacher, it won't happen.
Yeah. And I do love, and I will finish off, but coming back to what you said at the beginning, we need to retain our teachers. I'm also hearing you wouldn't have any trouble getting relief staff, because I think a reason we don't have a lot of relief staff around too is they're like, I don't want to go to a school and have to do behaviour. Like, that's not right. And so I think it's more than that, but also I suspect your teachers won't be having as many sick or mental health days themselves, because they come to an environment that is safe and supportive for them as well.
They can actually teach.
Yes.
Yeah. And
so I love
that's the ultimate goal. We
Absolutely.
want to set everyone up for success.
Yeah. And that's what parents want.
Teachers, parents, everybody.
Yeah, I love it. Well, congratulations. And thank you for sharing with us. And can I just ask anyone who's listening to this podcast and got something out of it, I would love you to share it with other people, because I think Renee and I really would believe that this can be a game changer for you and the other staff and schools that you know. And if we can just get the word out, and everyone, I mean, imagine if every school had a hub and that just became the thing, It'd
be amazing.
It'd be great.
Okay.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed the summer conversation series. I must say, this one with Renee, I was so inspired after we recorded it, and I was like, oh my goodness, we need to get this in every school. But I realized the big thing from this was that actually it was about the whole school and getting the whole school involved, and that whole school conversation. I think that was what was incredibly powerful. So if you are interested in learning more about the hub, can you email me and just let me know you're interested? Because I spoke to Renee afterwards about maybe running some training for people, and we could do that on Zoom or virtually. But let me know if you're as interested as I am. But I also am about giving you practical strategies. And I just wanted to say that I actually think you can implement this in your classroom as a small check-in, looking at the engine check, having all the things that Renee talked about in place, that time timer with the thinking putty. All those things are available on my website, using the Red Beast book as a whole class. So even if it's not a whole school, if it's not possible in your whole school, maybe as a teacher you can have those same routines in place. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because in 2 weeks, I'm going to do an episode on routines and repetition and the power of those, because I think what you heard in that podcast was how powerful having the daily check-ins in, having the routine and repetition, not just the once off. So I always try and build on knowledge for you. So make sure you subscribe so you know when that podcast drops, because I don't always email out, hey, the latest podcast is in, because it depends what other things I've got going. And if you're a subscriber, then I assume you're already getting that information. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in learning more. Let me know if you think, if your leader, honestly, share this with your leadership team. I think what Renee said about this is actually about staff retention. This is about ensuring that staff are happier. I think this is a really, 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 really important. So please make sure that you share this with somebody, because I think this was one of the most powerful conversations I've had. There were so many things in here that I'm like, yes, I talk about this all the time. It's so wonderful to see a school doing it. Most of the things Renee talked about are from my social skills and my emotional regulation course. So if you're looking at doing some training this year and this sort of thing appealed to you, I think the social emotional learning, my social skills and emotional regulation give you all those things. They're going to give you the Red Beast visual that children can use, where their engine's at. It's going to give you all those key strategies. So I hope that this has inspired you for some good ideas. Don't forget to download the PDF. It does say a guide for parents, but I think it's a guide for teachers as well. There's so many gems in there. And maybe it's something you can share with other staff about, let's set this up. I was thinking too, in open plan classrooms where there is so much sensory overwhelm, maybe if you could do this with the team that you work with, it could make a huge difference to you and the children you know. So best of luck. I hope you've got some great tips and strategies to make a difference. Remember, strategies wear out and not every strategy works for everybody. If you're ready to dive in deeper to more strategies and ideas to make a difference, I'd highly recommend you consider Dr. Tony Atwood or my online courses. For more information, visit my website www.sulaki.com.au.